Mountains usually tell a clear story. Plates collide, rock rises, erosion does the rest. Most of the time, you can look at a peak and understand why it exists. Some mountains don't play by those rules. Around the world, there are peaks that look misplaced or unfinished, flat summits that seem cut by hand, towers that rise straight out of the ground with no foothills, shapes that feel more architectural than geological. These formations inspired myths, conspiracy theories, and decades of scientific debate, not because they're supernatural, but because they're the result of rare geological coincidences that don't happen often and almost never in isolation. This video looks at 6 of the strangest shaped mountains on Earth, how they formed, why they look wrong, and what it's taken for humans to reach them. On the border of Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana, Mount Roraima rises abruptly from the rainforest like a dropped object. There are no gradual slopes or rolling foothills. The land is flat, green, and ordinary. And then it simply stops. The mountain's summit is perfectly flat. Roraima is a tepui, a tabletop mountain formed from some of the oldest exposed rock on Earth. The sandstone that makes up its summit is estimated to be nearly 2 billion years old, predating most multicellular life. Long before the Amazon rainforest existed, this region was part of a vast sandstone plateau. Over hundreds of millions of years, erosion stripped almost all of it away, leaving behind isolated remnants like Roraima. What makes it look unnatural is the contrast. The sides rise nearly 400 meters straight up, forming sheer cliffs with almost no visible weakness. From a distance, it resembles a stone slab balanced on columns of air. Waterfalls spill continuously over its edges, dropping into mist before ever reaching the forest below. The summit itself is about 31 square kilometers in area and feels like a different planet. Constant rain, acidic soil, and isolation created an ecosystem found nowhere else. Carnivorous plants thrive here. Tiny black frogs evolved without the ability to jump. There was nowhere to jump to. Many species on the plateau exist only on this single mountain. For centuries, indigenous Pemon people regarded Roraima as sacred. In their mythology, it was the stump of a giant tree that once held all the world's fruits. Early European explorers thought the stories were exaggerations, until they saw it themselves. Despite its appearance, Roraima is one of the more accessible tepuis. A natural ramp on one side allows climbers to reach the top without technical climbing. The first documented ascent was in 1884, led by British explorer Everard M. Thurn, though indigenous people had likely reached the summit long before. Still, accessible is relative. Expeditions must cross days of dense jungle, rivers, and savanna before even reaching the mountain. Weather on the summit is unpredictable, with fog rolling in suddenly and rain falling almost daily. Visibility can drop to a few meters without warning. One strange detail often overlooked: Roraima doesn't erode evenly. The top surface is slowly dissolving, creating deep fissures, sinkholes, and stone labyrinths. Over geologic time, even this mountain will vanish, not by collapsing, but by being quietly eaten away from above. Roraima directly inspired Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World. He imagined dinosaurs surviving on its isolated summit. The reality is less dramatic, but in evolutionary terms, just as strange. In northeastern Wyoming, rising out of rolling prairie, Devil's Tower looks like a geological error. There are no surrounding mountains, no ridgelines, no gradual buildup, just a single stone pillar rising vertically from the landscape. The tower stands 386 meters above the Belle Fourche River, with sheer sides marked by perfectly straight vertical grooves. From a distance, it looks carved, as if the rock cracked along a blueprint rather than through natural processes. Those grooves are the key to how it formed. Devil's Tower is made of igneous rock, specifically phonolite porphyry, formed when magma forced its way upward but never erupted. Instead, it cooled slowly underground. As the molten rock cooled, it contracted, cracking into long polygonal columns. Most are hexagonal, though some have 5 or 7 sides. The result is one of the largest examples of columnar jointing on Earth. What makes Devil's Tower strange isn't just the columns, it's what's missing. Geologists agree the tower formed underground, but the material that once surrounded it is gone. Over millions of years, softer sedimentary rock eroded away, leaving the hardened magma core exposed. The tower didn't rise. Everything around it disappeared. There's still debate over what kind of structure it originally was. Some scientists argue it's a volcanic neck, the hardened conduit of an ancient volcano. Others believe it was part of a laccolith, a magma intrusion that spread sideways beneath the surface. The lack of volcanic debris nearby keeps the argument unresolved. Long before geology tried to explain it, indigenous tribes already had their own explanations. For the Lakota, Cheyenne, Kiowa, and others, the tower is sacred. Many stories describe it as a place where giant bears clawed the rock while chasing children who were lifted into the sky. The claw marks remain etched in stone. Those cultural ties still matter. Every June, many climbers voluntarily avoid the tower out of respect for tribal ceremonies. It's one of the rare places in the U.S. where recreational climbing and spiritual practice openly intersect. Humans didn't reach the summit until 1893, when William Rogers and Willard Ripley constructed a wooden ladder by hammering stakes into cracks along the side. The ladder remained in place for decades. Some of its original pegs are still embedded in the rock. Today, climbers use modern gear, but the route remains exposed and unforgiving. There's no easy path up. Wind is constant, weather changes quickly, and once you start climbing, retreat isn't simple. From the top, the view reinforces how isolated the tower truly is. Miles of grassland stretch in every direction. No other formation comes close to its height or shape. Devil's Tower feels unnatural because it violates expectations. Mountains usually belong to ranges. This one stands alone. It looks engineered, symmetrical, and intentional, a vertical monument left behind after time erased everything else. In the remote western Tibetan plateau, Mount Kailash rises in isolation, far from any major mountain range. At 6,638 meters, it isn't the tallest peak in the region, but it doesn't need to be. Its shape does the work for it. Kailash looks like a near-perfect pyramid. 4 steep faces rise symmetrically toward a sharp summit, each aligned almost precisely with the cardinal directions. Horizontal striations run across its sides, creating the impression of stepped levels, as if the mountain were constructed rather than formed. From certain angles, it appears geometrically deliberate in a way few natural peaks do. Geologically, Kailash is composed of sedimentary rock, layered and uplifted as the Indian tectonic plate pushed into Eurasia. Unlike nearby Himalayan peaks made of heavily folded and jagged rock, Kailash remained relatively intact. Its unusual symmetry is the result of erosion acting evenly on all sides over millions of years, combined with the mountain's resistant structure. That explanation satisfies geologists, but it hasn't stopped speculation. For over 1,000 years, Kailash has been considered sacred in multiple religions. In Hinduism, it is believed to be the home of Shiva. In Buddhism, it is associated with Demchok. Jains and followers of Bon also regard it as spiritually central. Because of this, no one has ever been permitted to climb it. Every expedition proposal has been denied. Instead of ascending, pilgrims perform a 52-kilometer circumambulation around the mountain, often at high altitude, sometimes prostrating themselves the entire way. The journey takes days and is considered spiritually transformative. Some believe completing it once erases a lifetime of sins. Completing it 108 times is said to bring enlightenment. This prohibition has made Kailash unique among major peaks. It remains completely unclimbed, not because it's impossible, but because it's forbidden. Even experienced mountaineers who have seen it up close say the mountain feels off-limits in a way that goes beyond law or culture. Adding to the strangeness, several major rivers originate near Kailash, including the Indus, Sutlej, Brahmaputra, and Karnali. From a single region, water flows toward 4 different parts of Asia. Ancient cultures saw this as evidence of cosmic significance. Western explorers attempted to survey the mountain in the early 20th century, but struggled with access and altitude. Modern satellite imagery confirms the symmetry, though it also shows subtle irregularities that break the illusion of perfection. Up close, it's still a mountain, fractured, weathered, and ancient. But distance matters. From afar, Kailash looks deliberate, too clean, too aligned. A peak shaped like a symbol rather than a coincidence. Its power comes not from what humans have done to it, but from what they have refused to do. In a world where nearly every mountain has been measured, mapped, and climbed, Kailash remains untouched, a geometric anomaly protected by belief rather than rock. On the island of Sao Tome, off the west coast of Central Africa, Picot de Sao Grande rises straight out of dense rainforest like a spike driven into the earth. There is no slope, no gradual incline, just a vertical shaft of rock. The peak stands 663 meters above sea level, but what matters is its prominence. Nearly 370 meters of near vertical ascent from its base. From a distance, it looks impossible, a freestanding stone needle surrounded by trees, clouds, and nothing else remotely similar. Picot de Sao Grande is a volcanic plug. Millions of years ago, magma rose through a volcanic vent and solidified before it could erupt. Over time, the surrounding volcano, made of softer material like ash and fragmented rock, eroded away. What remained was the hardened core, resistant enough to survive while everything else disappeared. This process is known, the result is not. Most volcanic plugs are jagged or partially buried. Picot de Sao Grande is unusually smooth and uninterrupted, with sides so steep they approach vertical for much of the climb. Moist tropical air keeps the rock slick year-round, and vegetation clings to cracks wherever it can. Climbing it is a logistical nightmare. The first successful ascent wasn't until 1975, led by Portuguese climbers who spent days hacking through jungle just to reach the base. Even today, fewer than a dozen documented ascents exist. There is no standard route. Anchors are unreliable. Rain can turn the rock into glass in minutes. At the summit, there is barely enough room to stand. Despite its modest height compared to major mountains, Picot de Sao Grande is considered one of the most technically difficult formations of its size. Climbers describe it less as a mountain and more as a sustained vertical problem that just happens to be hundreds of meters tall. Local legends long treated the peak as untouchable. Its name translates roughly to Great Dog Peak, possibly referencing its silhouette or a lost story now faded. For centuries, it was simply avoided. Ecologically, its isolation created another anomaly. Certain plant species exist only on its upper slopes, separated from the forest below by sheer rock walls. Seeds didn't climb here. They arrived by chance, carried by wind or birds, and evolved in near total isolation. What makes Picot de Sao Grande unsettling isn't its height or age. It's the way it rejects human intuition. Mountains usually widen as they descend. This one doesn't. It looks less like a landform and more like a mistake that geology forgot to smooth out. Standing at its base, the scale is hard to process. Your brain expects a slope. Instead, it finds a wall. In Yosemite National Park, Half Dome dominates the skyline even among giants. It doesn't rise the highest, it doesn't stretch the widest, but it's impossible to ignore because it looks incomplete. One side is a smooth vertical granite wall. The other slopes back gently, rounded and weathered. It looks like a mountain that broke, cleanly. Half Dome rises 2,693 meters above sea level, with its sheer northwest face climbing nearly 650 meters straight up. From the valley floor, the rock appears polished, almost reflective in certain light. There are no ledges, no obvious fracture zones, no gradual transition, just a vertical plane of stone. For years, people assumed the mountain was literally split in half by a massive geological event. Earthquake, explosion, catastrophic collapse. The reality is slower and stranger. Half Dome is made of granite, formed deep underground when magma cooled slowly beneath the surface. As erosion removed the overlying rock, the granite was exposed. Over time, pressure release caused large sheets of rock to peel away in a process called exfoliation. Glaciers did the rest. During the last ice age, massive glaciers moved through Yosemite Valley, grinding against the granite and carving its smooth faces. One side of Half Dome was gradually stripped away as slabs fractured and slid off, leaving behind the steep, clean face seen today. It wasn't a single moment of destruction. It was thousands of small ones, stretched across millennia. The result feels artificial. The face is so uniform that climbers compare it to a wall poured from concrete. From certain angles, it resembles a dome sawed in half with precision tools that didn't exist. Humans didn't reach the summit until 1875, when George Anderson drilled iron eye bolts into the rock and fixed ropes to assist the climb. Those ropes eventually evolved into the modern cable system, 2 steel cables running up the final slope, used by thousands of hikers each year. Even with the cables, the ascent is dangerous. The slope is steep, exposed, and unforgiving. Weather changes quickly, and wet granite becomes slick enough to cause fatal falls. Multiple people have died after losing footing near the top, especially during storms. Unlike most iconic mountains, Half Dome offers 2 completely different personalities depending on where you stand. From the front, it's a wall, From the back, it's a dome. No other peak in Yosemite looks remotely like it. That duality is what makes it unsettling. It feels asymmetrical in a landscape defined by balance, as if something intervened halfway through its formation and walked away. Half Dome doesn't look eroded, it looks edited. In the center of Australia, surrounded by flat desert that stretches to the horizon, Uluru rises alone. No foothills, no ridges, no transition. Just a single mass of rock emerging from the ground as if the land forgot to bury it. Uluru stands 348 meters above the surrounding plain and measures nearly 3.6 kilometers long. From a distance, it looks smooth and simple, a rounded slab tinted deep red by iron-rich minerals. But that simplicity is deceptive. What's visible above ground is only a fraction of the structure. Most of Uluru remains hidden beneath the desert, extending downward far more than it rises. Geologically, Uluru is not a typical mountain. It's an inselberg, an isolated rock formation formed from sediment that was once laid down horizontally at the bottom of an ancient sea. Around 550 million years ago, tectonic forces compressed and tilted these layers nearly vertical. Over time, softer surrounding material eroded away, leaving behind the dense Arcosi sandstone that forms Uluru today. That tilt is crucial. Up close, Uluru isn't smooth at all. Its surface is covered in grooves, folds, caves, and fluted channels carved by rare but intense desert rains. Water flows down the rock in predictable paths, slowly etching patterns that have remained stable for thousands of years. The result is a structure that looks carved rather than eroded, shaped deliberately, not randomly. For the Anangu people, Uluru is not just significant, it is alive. Every fissure, cave, and ridge is tied to Chukurpa, a system of ancestral stories that encode law, history, and geography. Certain areas are restricted, others are ceremonial. The rock itself is not considered an object, but a record. For decades, outsiders ignored that. Climbers began ascending Uluru in the early 20th century, carving a route up its steepest face. Despite repeated requests from the Anangu not to climb, tourism promoted the ascent as a challenge, a way to conquer the monolith. That changed in 2019 when climbing Uluru was permanently banned. The decision wasn't about safety, though heat and falls had caused deaths. It was about recognition. The climb violated the cultural meaning of the site, turning something sacred into an attraction defined by dominance rather than understanding. Since the ban, erosion along the old climbing route has begun to slow. Foot traffic had been grinding the sandstone into dust. Uluru also behaves strangely with light. At sunrise and sunset, the rock appears to change color, shifting from deep rust to orange to purple. This isn't an illusion. As the sun's angle changes, different mineral layers reflect light unevenly, altering its appearance minute by minute. The same rock can look completely different within half an hour. Despite its size, Uluru creates its own microclimate. Rainfall patterns shift around it. Birds use it as a navigational reference. Certain plant species grow only in its sheltered base, protected from wind and heat by the rock's bulk. What makes Uluru unsettling isn't its shape alone. It's the way it refuses classification. It isn't a mountain in the traditional sense, it isn't a hill, it isn't a cliff. It's a single exposed fragment of a buried world, tilted upright and left behind, while everything else vanished. Uluru doesn't dominate the landscape by height, it dominates it by presence.